Alright, this is the Black Bear Prepper again. I'm sorry about that. We did have our battery die here, but we are able to do something a little different that I'm actually kind of excited about and turning into a two-parter. One, we're going to talk about in a couple seconds what we found out doing the two different stoves at different times. But the biggest thing I wanted to talk about was we're going to switch the stoves. One of these is one of the older stoves, and one of them is one of the newer stoves. So the nice thing we've been able to do is switch it over. This is the older stove out of the fleet, and this is a newer, brand new version. So there's slight differences. I wanted to make sure I was giving the best case scenario to both of the stoves. So I just wanted to see if we could kind of go from there and see where we're at. We're going to do 1 cup boil time, so these should be really fast, about 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes. So from what I've seen so far, I did not see a big change. I did not see any change in the idea that either of these stoves were going to be, it was still going to be slower for the quiet stove. So while we're letting them warm up here, I wanted to go over some of the things that I noticed. Cons, okay, and I want to talk about, there's an advantage to this, but there's also some disadvantages, and I always do this for everything I do. There's a plus and minus to everything. I love Wiggy sleeping bags, but they're heavier, okay, but they work better. So it's just what it is. Nothing is light unless it works. Nothing is cheap unless it works. Now, one thing I've noticed was that it does take a little longer to prime them, being that it does, you want to use a little bit more fuel. Is it a lot? No, it's half a con in my opinion. The weight of the actual item itself, it weighs a little bit more, so you're going to add a little bit more weight to your time, your doing. The biggest thing I noticed is that this the quiet stove cap takes a lot longer to cool down. So just kind of keep that in mind. When you're able to throw your gear together and blow it out real quick and just be able to throw it in your bag, that's not going to happen. Now, on the older stoves, I noticed that you had to adjust the stove, the rod that goes through there, bend it just a little bit so it will close on itself. Now, I tried 2 different caps. They were both exactly the same, but I noticed that my stove here on the older one, the actual burner wasn't quite dead center in the middle. It was kind of a little farther forward, and so when I compared it to the newer version, it was more centered and allowed it to close. So, is that the end of the world? Nope. I'm just telling you, when you get it, and if you have the older one, my experience is I had to bend the center rod just a little bit, and I just put it up into the center position and tweaked it back and forth and moved the burner back slightly, and it closed just fine. Now when you do close them, it is a point where you push up and it actually pushes it tight. It's not where it will fall all the way over like it normally does. Is that a huge problem? No, it closes just fine. It's a tight fit, so it doesn't rattle around. You don't lose your quiet cap. The boil time, definitely a problem. And we're going to try it one more time in front of you guys to kind of get the idea of what you think. But I want to make sure you're doing it with both stoves. We pumped them another 25 times, so let's kind of get that. The pros, okay? I'll tell you right now. The pros of this stove is it is massively quieter. Massively quieter. To where I run 3 of these at a time when I'm out guiding. It is definitely worth buying this product, okay? I think, hands down, it tends to actually, the nicer thing that I've noticed is because it stays warm, it tends to keep the stove burning warm, which means that if you turn it off, it's way easier to get it relit, just in my opinion. So I definitely like that. It tends to be, in my opinion, a much better simmering stove at this point. It does spread the burn out so that if you're using a fry pan, it tends not to burn it right in the center. It tends to burn it a little bit farther out, so you get a better, range of your burner. I definitely like that. Overall, I also like the fact that when it locks in like this, and it does when you turn it on and turn it off, it does lock in, but it does come out with no tools. You can actually grip onto it and twist it. Now there's a bunch of things online I saw where people are saying, oh, you need a special tool and everything. That has not been my opinion or my view here as I'm experienced that I've been using it. So do I notice that? No, I didn't see that as a huge deal. It literally, once you let it cool down, you can grab onto it and pop it off. If you do get one that is having a problem, we do recommend that you, if you're going to try to pop it out and you're having troubles getting it out, warm it up and then knock it loose. And it tends to be warm, it pops out a little easier. Why is it? Just my opinion. The turning it off and it being a little bit more of a quiet stove, it tended to be, I thought it worked just a lot better in the idea that I can hear it. I can't tell you how much of a pain it is to be able to have to yell every single time you do anything in camp because the stoves are so loud. So that's just my opinion. Let's get to our boil time test here. Like I said, we're going to do a cup of water in each. I still think the standard burner is going to win a little bit, which in my opinion means that if you are going just off fuel consumption, I would leave the standard burner plate on there. If I'm going to be camping, where I'm going to be camping around other people, and it's not as necessity to have the fastest stove on the market, I'm going to pick the quiet stove. That's just what it is. Everything has its pros and its cons. I would much rather have the simmerability of this stove, picking this over like maybe a Primus or something else, where this one has the shaker jet. If you don't know about shaker jets, learn about them. It's a great feature on the MSR stove. It also has the better pot stand. It also has a place to catch your fuel, so you're not having any fuel that leaks come down below the stove. I like the dragonfly stove in general. So over picking, let's say, a whisper light, which I have several of those too. They are faster. In my opinion, they tend to be quicker. And especially even slowing them down a little bit more by putting the quiet stove on there. This product costs just about $59 shipped to your house for each stove. I don't see that as a huge deal. I mean, one of these containers right here is going to cost you 25 bucks. So 2 bottles for the actual pleasantness of being able to quiet it down and being able to switch to from a cap to a burner plate. That's great. That's easy. Simple. Now, both these stoves, I did switch the stove and I did do a decimal test again. It came out almost exactly the same. So about 65 and then a max of about 67. Just 1 decimal lower than the other one. So if anything, this stove should be slightly slower. We'll see what happens. But let's crank them up and let them get up to full power. For the Dragonfly, they make these for all kinds of stoves out there. Not just for the Dragonfly, it just happens to be the stove I have. They make them for your Primuses and your Colemans and everything else. He makes tons of these caps. So check out his website. He also does sell them on Amazon and on eBay. All the same price. So definitely an advantage. I bought it off his website because I thought it would get here a little quicker. But he says he ships them the next day, which I found that to be the case. shipped the next day. So and from my experience, about 20 to 30 seconds later, we're going to have a full boil on this guy here. And it appears that we've got that happening right now. But as you notice, I can talk over this one. Even with it fully boiling, which it is right now. Just about what we've had noticing is that it tends to be about 20 seconds to 30 seconds slower than the standard stove. So boil times are going to go up a little bit. It's going to take a little longer to boil with this particular attachment. But I can hear. And I can actually turn the stove down really low. And if you're inside of a tent and you're trying to talk to each other, not that you should cook inside tents, but if you are, it definitely has its advantages there. But also with cooking with fry pans, it is nice to have not just the standard center burn in there, where you're getting a little bit more of a spread out burner. And let's see if we can. Let me see if I can show that. But it does spread out the burner a little bit. And you'll notice that the burner does grow all the way across the bottom of the pan as it's cooking. To me, that is an advantage. Probably one of the things, I tend to use more round pots and flatter pots versus taller pots. If you're one of the guys that's using a taller pot, that to me would definitely be a reason to stick with the standard pot system. But you're going to deal with the noise. So maybe this is not the stove for you. Maybe you want to go with a Primus or a Whisper Light or something like that. They do not have the features the Dragonfly does. Big fan of the Dragonfly. So, this is the Black Bear Prepper. Thank you for joining us for our second video on the Quiet Stove. If you have any questions, in my opinion, a definite buy if you have a Dragonfly or a Primus or an Optimus or any of the other stoves out there that are very, very loud. That, as you can see, just even at a simmer, this stove is able to turn way down and get down to where we can almost not even hear it. That is a huge blessing. Now, if I was going to go up to maybe Mount Whitney or something like that, I might throw the burner plate back on just because it is going to be a little faster. It's going to save me a little bit of fuel. But if you have any questions, hit us up. Like I said, definitely contact this guy if you have any questions. He's much more knowledgeable about them than me. American-made product. We definitely want to back American-made products. And great customer service, a must-have if you have one of these louder stoves. So have a great day and thank you very much.